Welcome to YouTooSpain Live. In today's Q&A, you'll get the latest updates about the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa, and we'll take you through the whole process. So join me and my expert guest, Louise Carr from movetospainguide.com, here on the virtual settee by the virtual pool. Have a chat, relax, and ask your important questions. There will be plenty of very helpful information and answers throughout the show, so stick around to the end and enjoy the chat. Or if you're watching the video back afterwards, you can ask questions and chat in the comments below. Right then, gather round, relax, give us a wave, hit that like button and have your questions ready. Enjoy the show. You are all very welcome to YouTooSpain. Let's dance. Get ready for it. Here it comes. Groovy, baby. Right then, just before we get chatting, don't forget to make a note of our website. It'll be on the screen all the way through, YouTooSpain.com, where there are loads of articles, resources, specialists and links that you need for your move to Spain and for living here, including very valuable and money-saving information from our friends at Smart Currency Exchange, who have a way of fixing a great advance exchange rate for you. It's a speciality of theirs, and they have the loveliest people there. Trustpilot agrees with me on that. Very, very good reviews. As an example, if you'd fixed a rate only a few weeks ago and completed on a house purchase today when the rate has fallen considerably from 1.16 to 1.15, I just checked before the show, you'd have saved yourself literally thousands of euros, about 4,000 if you were buying a house worth 400,000. So that's an example. There's a link below to get in touch with them and start a free account. It doesn't cost you a penny, and it helps YouTooSpain out when you use that link. It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top. There it is. So, without further ado, let's meet our excellent guest for today. It's Louise Carr from movetospainguide.com. Hola, Louise.
Hola. Hi, Scats.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you so much for asking me. It's great to be here. I really enjoy watching your show.
Fabulous. A fan as well. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Talking of fans and clients as well, give a shout out to some of your successful clients recently.
Well, I've done around 50 applications now, and I can really say I've enjoyed doing every single one of them. So it's quite hard to single anyone out, but I'll give a big shout out to everyone in our Facebook group, which is called Digital Nomad Visa Spain. A shout out to Rochelle DeWitt, who I've just seen has come online and who's watching. She's someone in our Facebook group, a really brilliant professional. I speak to her every day. We help each other. So a lot of people think we work together, but we don't. We just really help each other. Also, a big shout out to Sam and Irina from the Facebook group who really help as well. Irina is actually someone you should get on the show in the future.
Excellent. Yes, I will do then. And yes, hello from me to Rochelle as well. The last time we did a Digital Nomad Visa show, in fact, probably the last 2 or 3 times we've done about the Digital Nomad Visa, Rochelle was the guest. So
yeah, that's right.
Lovely to see you there. And hello to Paul Cook, Toshiguryo Martial Arts, good morning, and to Anton Kez, the AK Mitchell, as you can see on there, from damp and cool 17 Celsius. That's over up in northern France. It is northern France, isn't it? Yes. And it'd be lovely to see you. Come down to super hot southern Spain. No, it's about the same temperature down here at the moment. As you can see, I've got the hoodie on. I've got my heater on for the first time this season. So there you go. It's just going to get cooler and cooler. But I'm actually really, really enjoying the cool temperatures there. So that is that. Let's get straight into this week's topic. I have lots of FAQs in front of me, and I'm sure there will be some excellent questions from our watchers. I'll keep an eye out for those, and we'll dip in and out as we go through the questions. So, first of all, let's talk about the name of the visa. Digital Nomad Visa, Teleworkers Visa, is that the same thing? What's it called on the application form?
Well, on the application form, it's called International Teleworkers Visa, but even the Spanish government calls it the Digital Nomad Visa. It's kind of strange in a way because a digital nomad probably wouldn't apply for a visa because it's really someone who would stay a month or two in each country and then move on, a nomad basically. But that's what these kind of visas are known as. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, good to know. So, who can apply? Who's it designed for?
Well, basically, it's for non-EU nationals who earn at least 30,000 euros a year, just slightly above that, and who are able to carry out their work remotely. In a nutshell, that's what it is.
Great. So those are the requirements.
Well, that's the basic one.
30,000
Yeah,
and a bit.
obviously, we can
Yeah.
get into more specific requirements, but yeah, it's basically the client or the employer has to not be in Spain. So it's basically Spain's way of bringing in these, let's say, young professionals who are earning pretty good salary for Spanish standards, and you can live a pretty good life on 30,000 euros. And they're not
Absolutely.
taking any jobs from Spanish people. They're not taking clients from Spanish businesses, and they'll be spending money. So that's the idea behind it, really.
Yes, that's one of the requirements, isn't it? That your customers have to be outside of Spain, or the company that you're working for has to be outside of Spain.
Yeah, if you're self-employed, you could have up to 20% of your income coming from Spain, but the other 80% has to be from out of Spain.
Great. Do you need professional qualifications? Is that a stipulation?
No, it's not. If you have professional qualifications that are relevant, you can use those for the application, but you could also show 3 years work experience, which is what 90% of people do probably. It's a whole lot easier if you've worked for your current employer or client for over 3 years, then it's very easy. That's that box ticked. Or if you haven't, you could get a reference from previous clients or employers. Or if you really are straight out of university or something, or just started working, then you could use your degree. It's a longer process because the degree needs to be notarized by a solicitor. You have to get an apostille for it. So it's a lot easier just getting a letter, if you can, a reference.
Great. How do you prove your remote worker status then? Is it a letter from the employer or something like that?
Yeah, a contract is very important in the application. It's signed by both parties, both you and your employer or client, and also a letter from them. This is what a lot of self-employed have an issue with, not a lot, but some. The client needs to give them permission, basically, or even just to say that they're happy with them working from Spain, which could feel kind of strange asking a client for that permission, but you can word it slightly differently. They could just say they're happy for you working in Spain. But yeah, those two things, and also 3 months of bank statements. So that's the evidence that the money is actually going into your account, the account in your name. So those 3 things are really the proof.
Does that letter need to be translated?
Yeah, everything has to be in Spanish, absolutely everything. So well, a couple of exceptions actually, but these days most things have to have a sworn translation as well, which means you have to get a government approved translator to do it. So it can be quite expensive.
Right. How long does the visa last then?
Well, for this question, we really need to make a distinction because it's only a visa if you apply in a consulate abroad. There's 2 ways of applying for this digital nomad visa or approval. You can apply in your home country in a consulate, and then you give them your passport. You get it back hopefully a month or so later with a visa on one of the pages. So you use that and you show it when you enter the country, enter Spain. But if you apply from within Spain, it's not a visa you get, it's an approval letter. So you then take that approval letter to the police station, you give your fingerprints, and you get the TIE card. So that's how it works. So the question, going back to it, was how long does the visa last? It's a 1-year visa from a consulate. And if you apply in Spain, it can be up to 3 years, but it really depends how long your contracts are, or if you're using an A1 certificate. I'm sure we'll get into that in a later question. It's the length of the A1 certificate.
Excellent. So that's a big, it depends. Normally I flash that up on screen. Let's go.
Yes, it's quite a complex answer, but up to 3 years is the response.
Brilliant. And what are the benefits of the digital nomad visa? Things like residence, travel rights, tax, things like that?
Well, I think the main benefit is being able to live and work in Spain, because before this, it was really difficult for younger working people of working age, to come and live in Spain, especially for British people after Brexit. It was, if you were retired, you can apply for an NLV, a non lucrative visa, but then you need to show proof that you're not working anymore usually. If you've got 500,000 euros spare, you could buy a house and get a golden visa. But there was nothing for the younger, just starting out working people. I mean, you don't have to be young for this. I'm just using an example, really. It could be an older working person as well, just not ready for retirement. So that's the main benefit, the chance to live and work in Spain, I'd say. I'm sure we'll come on to tax later. I wouldn't say that's a big benefit, really, for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're not a tax specialist. That's something that Rochelle always says and Chris always says there.
Yeah, actually, I'm a tax specialist. That's
you are? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm more of a tax specialist than a visa specialist. So some of the questions about visas, I usually refer people to someone like Rochelle or Irina. So,
Great to know. So let's talk about family members. Which ones can you take? Who can it include? And do they have the right to work? Do they apply separately?
Okay, well, you can take your spouse, your partner, although it's a bit harder to prove that they're your partner. You could take your kids. You could even take older kids over 18 if you can prove that they're financially dependent on you. And you can even take your parents, but that's, again, they have to be financially dependent on you, which can be quite difficult to prove. What was the second question? Was can they work?
Can they work? Yep.
Yes, the dependents actually have more freedom than the main applicants. They could get a job in Spain. They could work elsewhere in the world remotely. They have a lot of freedom to work. It's not really checked. So.
And do they apply separately, or is it all part of the one application?
Well, it's a separate application, so you have to pay separately if you're doing it yourself, or pay a professional separately. But we could either apply on the same day as the main applicants, or you could apply later. Because the thing is, when you apply from within Spain, you have to physically be in Spain. So sometimes it works out better. For example, if it's a big family, if the main applicant comes first, we do the application, it's successful, and then the family can come over later. And then the family's kind of less risky, because all that really needs to be shown is proving the relationship, like a birth certificate or something. And there needs to be enough income to cover them, and also a criminal records check, which is not relevant for kids, of course. So it's a lot. There's less things that can go wrong.
Great. Got a question from Toshi. Would this be the visa to get if you're self-employed with an online business?
Yes, it would. Yeah, self-employed people can sometimes have a problem if they have maybe hundreds of clients. Like, say you have an Amazon shop or something, you're selling not direct to Amazon, but to the clients. You need to ask all of those clients for a letter of permission, letting you work in Spain, which is not going to happen. So that can be a problem. Usually the advice in that situation is to start a limited company of some sort, and then the self-employed person starts working for that company. That's usually the solution.
Yeah, nice one. I've not heard of that one, so good. It's an extra bit of knowledge. So that's everything about family members. I think we've covered that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you, this is a common question I've heard actually, can you swap from a non-lucrative visa to the digital nomad visa after year one?
Yes, it's a common question, and I have to say I haven't actually done any of those, any applications like that yet. But the UGE, which is the government department that deals with this visa, they're called La Unidad de Grandes Empresas, they've said more than once that you can swap. So people question that because they say, oh, it's an NLV and you're not allowed to work. So how is it possible to show 3 months of work experience on an NLV? But the answer to that really is, for the NLV, there's nothing actually specific in law which says that someone can't work abroad. It's really a rule that the consulates have, and they ask for proof when you're applying for it. And then if you're going to renew it, then obviously it could be a problem if you're working. But in this case, you're not renewing it, you're changing to a different visa. So they've said more than once, the UGE, that it can be done. You can start working 3 months before you apply for the digital nomad visa, and you're eligible.
That's interesting. Yes, because I've mentioned that a few times on After Brexit in Spain, which is a Facebook group that we're all quite heavily involved in, passing on advice and things like that. And I keep saying, how can it be possible if you've got to have been working before? But that's a good way of explaining it. Thank you. That clarifies it. It's a tricky one to balance, isn't it? I suppose you're walking a bit of a fine line there.
Well, in this case, it's two different departments, government departments, who are dealing with the visas. As I've said, it's the UGE who deal with the digital nomad visa, and it's a different one that deals with the NLV. So who knows if they really talk to each other that much?
Yes, that's the eternal question, isn't it? Which department's talking to which department? Yeah. So I will put the website details of the UGE. This is the way to search for it, by the way. I found UGE-CE Spain is the best way to Google it.
Yeah, it's not a very user-friendly website, but yeah, I think that's the right one.
I'll put it down anyway. I'll put a link to it down below after the video, along with Louise's website, of course, and contact details. You can contact.
Thank you.
Perfecto. So, and could you swap if you're here on another visa?
Yes, theoretically, yes. I really just specialize in the digital nomad visa, so I haven't done these swaps yet. But it's been said that you can, and it's been said that it's relatively simple to swap between visas.
So she's saying, is there a limit on income from the online business?
Well, in this case, a limit on income from the online business. You have to show 30,000 euros of income, just above that, excuse me, as a self-employed applicant. So that could all be coming from the online business. That could be their payments to you, well, obviously divided by 12 on a monthly basis. Or if you're applying without a limited company as self-employed, you need to show above the limit of payments in the 3 months before. So it's all about showing that there's enough income coming to you as a person. This is where people really get confused. They think that a business needs to be earning a certain level of income, but this is a visa for a person, not for a business. So it's all to do with the person, the applicant, and their bank statements, their contracts.
Yes, actual income coming through.
Yeah.
So, and that, I'm presuming you mean, Toshi, the lower limit on income rather than the higher limit, because I don't think there is a higher limit, is there?
You're welcome, Toshi.
Yeah, there we go. So I think you've already gone through this, but let's just clarify where to apply. Is it through the consulate in the UK, or is it in Spain, or consulates in whichever country you reside? Is there a difference in cost there?
Okay, well, as you said, yes, you can apply through a consulate. It's not something that I would recommend at the moment. I don't say that because I'm trying to get more business to do applications myself, because we're pretty full at the moment. The reason is because this is a new visa, which just started this year. the UGE, that's the way of applying in Spain, started in January. But the consulates, I don't remember what month they started, but it's very new for them. And they seem very disorganized. I had a client of mine, she unfortunately wasn't successful in Spain. She was over her 90 days, so we couldn't apply again in Spain. So she had to go back to the UK, and she applied through the London consulate. And honestly, it was like a soap opera, what happened. They had her passport for 2 months. She sent about 50 emails. She was sending them every day. She was calling, I don't know how many times, and she was without her passport all that time. And I'm sure many of people watching will know that the Spanish consulate doesn't do everything alone. They outsource to a company called, I think it's called BLS, is it? Is that right? Yeah. So because it's new for both of them, some of the documents she gave to BLS didn't make it to the Spanish consulate. So her application was just in limbo for 2 months, and it was a complete mess, highly stressful. So obviously it will settle down eventually, and maybe there's consulates doing a better job than that. But also, for a UK citizen, it costs almost £600 to apply in London, which is very high price, and that's per person. So that would include children or anyone. Whereas in Spain, if you were to apply yourself, it costs €73.26. Obviously, that doesn't include someone to help you, but it's such a huge difference in price. And so what people could do would just be take a holiday in Spain. You could do the application then, because as I said, you have to physically be in the country. So they'd physically be here when we do the application. And then as soon as it's done, they could go home. And then when it's successful, hopefully, if they still have some days left out of their allowance, they could then come back. And that's a really good way to do it.
Great. So if you're applying through UGE here in Spain, how long does it take to apply from the time you get the phone call from a client to the application and then to get the response back?
Well, it's difficult to say how long it takes from when we first get in contact with the client, but by the time a client has all their documents ready, we then have to do the sworn translations, which takes about a week, or it can be faster. And then we prepare everything so it's all nicely presented. We do the application, so this takes about 2 weeks. And then the UGE have 20 working days to say yes or no to it. At the moment, they're only taking about 12 working days, so it's going really fast. But over summer, when everyone was on holiday, they weren't managing to do it within 20 working days. So what happens in that case is quite interesting. If you don't get a response within 20 working days, there's this thing called positive administrative silence. So whoever filed your application can then file another document which basically asks for an approval letter, and you get that. They have to give that to you legally within, well, usually it's within a couple of days you get that. So it's actually worked out really well this year to apply in August, because that's what was happening.
Aha, that's sneaky. Nice.
I don't know if it'll be the same next summer, but we'll see.
Probably not. They like to close up those little holes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, whizzing through these questions, it's brilliant. Thank you for that. Great answers, by the way. But before we continue, let's go for a quick message from me and from Doogie as well, and many more of my alter egos about the wonderful things available to you as YouTooSpain fans. So let's see that. We'll see you all in just a few moments. This show is very helpful to you, isn't it? And you're enjoying it too.
Then click on the thumbs up, you lazy
Colonel, I don't have any thumbs. You can use your nose, Doogie. And don't forget to subscribe as well.
And rub on the bell for notifications while you're there.
It's all free. Information is valuable.
I need a coffee to keep my pecker up.
So why not show your appreciation by buying us a coffee or 3?
There's a link in the video description below.
No, use the QR code. I own the company, you know.
No, you don't, Colonel.
It's there for the whole show, sweetie. Just point your camera phone at it. But wait, if you think all the help and information and entertainment you get here is worth more than just a few coffees, you can support YouTooSpain with a regular monthly amount.
They're not getting my money.
You don't have any, Colonel. You live in a hostel. There's a link to Patreon where you can find out what extra groovy movies you get by helping out. Oh, I'm all a quiver. One more thing.
Get on with it. There's a guest waiting. Goodness knows why.
The beautiful watchers are waiting too.
And the ugly ones.
That's enough, Colonel. There are lots of vital things that YouTooSpain gets you access to, and discounts too.
What things, Master? I like things.
Well, do you need private healthcare insurance?
Of course I do. This gout won't go away on its own, you know.
Do you need a visa or residency, sweetie? Do you need to exchange currency?
What about finding a property like mine? It's huge and expensive.
Just like me, darling.
Ah!
Or do you need advice on tax and pensions? I don't know what they are.
Or do you want a Spanish mortgage?
Or a discount on getting documents translated and apostilled?
Or a lawyer to sort you out. I didn't do it, wasn't me.
Do you need a lovely little app for learning Spanish?
How about finding the best mobile phone provider?
Buy a YouTooSpain t-shirt. It's a win-win-win.
You can even get discounts on full mouth dental treatment and get a new smile just like Scats.
Smile!
All of the links are here, down below, sweetie.
If you can't find them, ask me in the comments.
Are you finished yet? I need to go and kick some servants.
He's not a very nice human.
No, he's not. But let's get back to the show, shall we?
Back to Scats in the studio.
That was my line.
Oh, stop being beastly and be a good little boy. I am a good boy.
You are, Doogie. Back to you, Scats. Thank you very much, Scats, and Walter and Doogie and Dick and the Colonel. If anybody's got any questions for them, then ask them in the comments below. And how do you like the new updated mid-show message? That was one I recorded just this week, actually, so it's now up. I'm going to make it available to everybody who signs up for regular monthly amounts on Patreon, and there's much more fun to come on there. I'm going to start doing a lot of behind-the-scenes videos, like the one I did yesterday, which is also on our Facebook group and the Facebook page as an example. So everybody have a look at that and enjoy. So I asked on Facebook for questions, but I've not seen any come through up to early this morning. So let's continue with the FAQs then. So, has the digital nomad visa turned out to be as good as what people were hoping for? Is it some things that aren't allowed that many people were hoping for?
Well, I'd say yes and no is the answer to that question. Yes, because as we've said, it's the first chance that non-EU nationals have had in many years to come and work in Spain. So lots of people have got this visa. Actually, I've got some statistics here about how many people have applied for the visa, which is quite interesting.
Excellent. Yes, go for it.
Sure. So up to the 12th of October, the start of this month, there was just over 10,000 people applied for the digital nomad visa. And until that date, 8,000 of them had received a response, so an approval or a denial letter from them. Mm-hmm. And 75% of the main applicants were approved, and 81% of family members, the dependents, were approved. Mm-hmm. And it has to be said that these statistics include the first couple of months, which was honestly a real mess. It was chaotic. The UG say themselves, the requirements weren't very clear, and mm-hmm. people were applying without the right documents. So that has obviously dragged these percentages down. So they estimate that right now it's around 87% is the rate of success.
Well,
That
that's
means
brilliant.
that a lot of people are getting the visa, so it seems to be worth it.
That's excellent figures. That's far better than the self-employed visa figures originally, which last year we were talking about something like 20-25%
Oh,
being
really?
approved.
That's very low. Yeah, the self-employed visa seems very complicated in comparison, because I guess you're working with Spanish clients, so they really do make you jump through hoops, whereas this is people working with clients abroad, so they seem to be less stringent. I'd say the biggest disappointment possibly with the visa is the tax side of it. What happened was the Spanish government made a big law last December, which was called the Startup Law. And it was all about making Spain more innovative and bringing in talented people from abroad, people with knowledge in technology, that sort of thing. Encouraging Spanish people to start innovative companies. So in that law, it was mentioned a 15% tax rate, which the press kind of jumped on. And actually, I forgot to mention, in this big law, digital nomads visa was just tagged on to the end of this big law. So 90% of it was about companies, innovative companies, and only like 5 to 10% of it is about digital nomads. So it's kind of an afterthought. It wasn't very thought through at all. Actually, none of this startup law was. So the law mentioned a 15% tax rate, and the press kind of jumped on that and said, come to Spain, be a digital nomad and pay only 15% tax. But actually, the 15% rate was never meant for individuals. It was always meant for companies. That's corporation tax. So also in this law, it was mentioned a 24% rate of tax, which is called the Beckham law, this rate of tax, which the press also jumped on, the ones who took the trouble to read a bit better, probably, because that does apply to individuals. But then it turns out that the self-employed can't apply for this 24% rate of tax. And it's looking like most employees can't either. So it's been a big disappointment. But I always say to people, Spain is not a place to move to save tax. It's usually the opposite. It's a place to leave to pay less tax. And that's basically how it's worked out.
So you don't find out until you kind of register for tax afterwards whether you can get the Beckham's law. Is that how it's working out for some people?
Actually, we haven't. I think we're going to talk about the difference between employees and self-employed later. It's only employees who are eligible for the Beckham law, and they have to register for it within 6 months of starting work in Spain. There's a very specific list of documents needed. The form to apply for it isn't ready yet, so you have to find a tax lawyer who's able and willing to do it. And there are some who are doing these applications. I've got one contact who's a tax lawyer. He says he's done one application for the Beckham law, and it went through okay. It was accepted. But then when he went to do another one, the tax agency came back to him and said, you have to wait till the forms are ready. You can't do it right now. So it's a complete mess, basically. There's a very clear requirement that you have to apply within 6 months. So you can do that through a tax lawyer. But then that's the actual processes, the form, even knowing who can apply and who can't. It's not ready yet, and no one really knows why it's taking so long.
I wonder if we'll ever know. There you go. So how about let's go through the documents and paperwork that you need in order to apply.
Okay, I've got my list here, so don't forget anything.
Great.
The first thing on the list, or the first thing that's looked at probably, is your passport. You have to provide a copy of every single page of it. This is when you're applying in Spain, I should say, not a consulate. And so it has to include your entry stamp. So the most common reason for a rejection is because there's some problem with how long you've been in Spain. If you're from a country that has a Schengen days allowance, it could be that they think you've been in Spain over 90 days, or some countries need a visa, so it could be that there's some problem with the visa. But that's the most common reason for rejection, something to do with not being in Spain in a regular manner. I'm convinced it's because the first thing on the list of the application form is the passport. So you can just imagine a funcionario, a government worker in their office on a Friday afternoon. They've got all these applications to look at. They find something wrong with the passport, and then it's very easy for them to say, no, okay, sorry, rejection. So that's a very important thing to get right, making sure that you're in Spain in a regular manner, that you can prove that.
It means you have to plan ahead, I suppose, really well to when you're going to put the application in, because that'll help.
Yeah.
If you've only got like 90 days, if you do it the minute you land.
Yeah, that's actually one of my tips for when we get into that later. Sorry. What do you need? Just so I don't go off track too much. The second thing is the contract, very important. It's on the application form. So some people ask, can you get away without it? No. It has to be signed by both parties, so you and the employer or client. Preferably it has to be indefinite, but it can be a bit shorter, which is what some people have. But then that could mean that you get a shorter approval, shorter visa. The third thing is a letter from your employer or clients giving you permission, or just saying that they're happy for you working in Spain. And then 3 months of bank statements to show income being paid from your employer or client directly to you. A criminal record check from whichever country you've been living in to show that you have no or nothing too serious on your record. There's various declarations that you have to sign, and if you're taking dependents, the proof of the relationship with them. Actually, yeah, we should mention social security, a very important part of it. So this really gets us on to the distinction between employees and the self-employed. Both apply for the visa in theory, but unfortunately, it's very difficult for employees, except if if they work in the UK or Russia or certain EU countries. Because if they do that, they can then get what's known as an A1 certificate. In the UK, you get this from HMRC, and it basically allows you to keep paying national insurance in the UK, you and your employer. So everything stays the same. It's nice and easy for the employer, and it covers you for social security in Spain. You can then apply for what's known as a S1 certificate, which gets you free healthcare in Spain. It covers you for if you lose your job, if you or your partner get pregnant, that sort of thing. And it means that you don't have to pay the more expensive Spanish social security. If you are unfortunately not working in one of those countries, the UK, Russia, or certain EU countries, the only option you have as an employee is to convince your employer to register to pay Spanish social security. This is not a popular option, as I'm sure you can imagine, because it sounds scary, doesn't it? So, yeah, so what probably 95% of employees are doing from every other country is switching to be a contractor. So if you're a contractor, it's a nice, easy process. You just need to include a declaration with the application that as soon as you're approved, you'll register as self-employed in Spain and start paying Spanish social security yourself.
Just drop in there, do you have to spend 3 months as the contractor?
Yes.
Yeah, before you do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that all of the documents and paperwork and the requirements then?
I think so. There's various other declarations, but it's just sort of like declaring that you don't have a criminal record in the past 5 years, things like that.
Yeah, and that health insurance, I don't know if you mentioned that, but that's...
Yeah, no, I didn't actually. It's only employees that need that private health insurance. Most of them do get private health insurance. There is the alternative of asking for an S1 certificate, but that's kind of more untested for the moment. Some people have done it, but most are just buying private health insurance. For the self-employed, no, they don't need it, because when you're self-employed in Spain, you get free healthcare.
Yeah, I had to sign up for the Social Security before. I'm an EU citizen, but I had to sign up for my Social Security before putting in my residency application, just to show that I had health insurance. Yeah, we had to do it that way around. But presumably with the UGE, it's not. They just assume that you're going to do that.
You would have had the ability to work in Spain, but if someone's not from the EU, they can't work in Spain, so they can't register as self-employed. So they need the work permission first. So that's why it's done that way.
Yeah, good to know. And the other thing, of course, it's sufficient funds, which comes on to Stephen Perry's question here. He's saying, if you have, it sounds like he's got plenty for the application here, but he said, if you have over 600,000 euros in savings, funds annually of over 75,000 per year on a, he's letting off a villa there, and earn commissions, but sporadically from your employer, presumably that is, what could you use, or a combination of all three?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind in this situation, it seems a lot easier to apply for an NLV. I mean, obviously we don't know if Stephen's employed, so it might be difficult to show that he's not working. Earn commissions, but sporadically. That can be a problem because they like to see that you have stable income for this visa, at least for 3 months. So I don't know if you could, I think Stephen probably means employer there rather than employee.
I think so.
I don't know if you could come to some arrangement where they could pay you more regularly for only 3 months. That's usually, I do have one client in this position. I think he sells car leases or something. And that's the answer, just to speak to the employer and come up with some arrangement for 3 months. And then if they're quite flexible in the contract too, it's doable. So yeah, the answer is you need to have a flexible employer and able to do this.
Great. He has another question below. If you live in a tax-free state, that's easily in the United Arab Emirates, there is a social security letter needed, as there is nothing of that nature here.
No, in that situation, there's no social security agreements that you could use if you were a UAE employee, which I'm guessing that Stephen's not. We don't have enough information. But in any case, there's no agreement between the UAE and Spain, so he couldn't get an A1 certificate. So what Stephen would do in this case would be to include the promise that he'll register for Spanish Social Security, register as self-employed when he was successful.
Great. Hope that covers your question, Stephen. Let us know if not. There's always time to ask. And next question. Oh yes, how do you prove funds?
Well, that's really through the 3 months of bank statements. For this visa, they're not really interested in how much you've got in the bank. They're not interested in your tax return. All they're really interested in is the past 3 months, and hopefully seeing regular income coming into your bank statements, and that's backed up with some kind of contract which shows kind of a guaranteed amount of income and not a sporadic income based on commission or a daily rate without any guaranteed number of days. They like to see something stable. You're welcome, Steve.
Great. Is it easy to apply? I think you've covered a bit of this already. And a second part of the question, why should people use a trusted agent like yourself?
Okay. Well, if you if you choose to apply through a consulate, which I wouldn't recommend at the moment until they settle down. And it's fairly easy to do it yourself. I'd say they've got a list of documents needed. You make an appointment, you go along, you present everything, and apparently they're fairly helpful at helping you make sure you've got the right things. If you apply in Spain, you can do it yourself. You need to have an NIE number and a digital certificate. The people who've done that tend to be from Spanish-speaking countries, South America, who already know Spanish, because the problem is the language that's used for things like this is not just your everyday conversational Spanish, it's legal talk. So you have to really understand the requirements. And if you're willing to put in the work to understand it, probably the best source of information is Facebook groups. Then yeah, you could do the application yourself. The reason to use someone to do it, I guess, is obviously not everyone's willing to put the work in, which is a good thing, because I'm sure your time can be used for other things. It's like if I decided to fix my car myself and I go on YouTube and research mechanics and things like that. No, my time's better spent doing digital nomad visas. And the other reason to use a professional is if something goes wrong, like if your application is denied, what happens quite a lot is someone will approach us and say that they applied themselves, the application wasn't successful, they would like to do an appeal, can we help them? And unfortunately, I always say no, just because of lack of time. I don't know what other professionals would do, but I can imagine some would charge a lot of money for doing that kind of thing, because they've got no relationship with the clients. They've got starting from scratch. So that's what could go wrong, basically.
You don't have long for an appeal. Is it 10 days, the same as it?
No, 30 days.
Oh, 30 days. Yeah,
it's
that's
really
still
not that long.
No. Yeah, Rochelle says, same here. There you go. You're saying about, get an interesting question actually, you're saying they need the NIE first.
Yeah.
Is that something that, you can apply through the consulate to get your NIE? Would they take that as a reason? Would they take, I'm going to be applying for the digital nomad visa? Will they take that as a reason?
They should do, because it's on their list of requirements. For example, for the London embassy, you need to have a NIE number, or you need to have applied for that. So people have gone to them, and for the reason they've said digital nomad visa. So that could actually be a good way of getting a NIE number, even if you wanted it for another reason. So it's an acceptable reason, yeah.
And there's not much you can do to actually prove that you're going. It's just like a promise that you're going to be.
Yeah, it's not even a promise. It's just giving a reason that you can change your mind.
There you go. So, how many months? Here's the question: how many months do you have to remain in Spain each year to fulfil regulations? This is one that Rochelle might be able to help with as well.
Yeah, this is not my favorite question, because I always have to look at my notes. But Rochelle's really good on questions like this. So under the digital nomad regulations, you can be out of Spain up to 6 months a year and still be okay to renew your digital nomad visa. But if you want to go for permanent residency, you can only stay out up to 10 months total during the first 5 years. So that's 2 months a year. So if you have that also means if you're from a former colony, you want to apply for Spanish nationality, it's no more than 2 months a year you can be out. So it's something to keep in mind.
There you go. Anything to add to that, Rochelle? We'll let you pop that in the comments. While we do any other frequently asked questions that you know about or advice that you would give?
Well, something that's just appeared in the comments that Rochelle said. Last minute help, yeah. Myself and Rochelle as well, I think every day we get emails or some contact from someone who says, I have all my documents ready. I'm in Spain. I'm on day 88 of my 90 days. I need to apply. Can you help me, please? And so every day I have to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm full until next February. So the tip on that is to find someone ASAP to help you. 6 months in advance would be ideal, because usually you just have to pay a small deposit to them, and then they can help you get all your documents ready. They can answer your questions. And so everything's going to be a whole lot stressful. If you turn up in Spain with only a couple of days left, you think you have all your documents ready, you're kind of left using someone who doesn't know what they're doing, or someone who does know what they're doing, and they're going to charge you their highest price, basically. So that's a tip. Don't do it.
Excellent. So, any more live chat questions? Be quick and put them in now, because there's a little time delay as well. So, there are a few comments come in. Let's read through those while everybody's thinking about that. Catherine has an interesting question. This is about getting your passport stamped. If you're travelling overland into Spain, I guess using the most common example would be people coming from the UK and arriving in France on the ferry. And some people have had problems getting the passport entry stamp there, and then travelling overland into Spain. How do you do this, or is it better to fly?
I would recommend not to do it. It's theoretically, you can get this form that's called entry declaration. You can take it to a police station within 72 hours, and you show them your evidence that you just arrived, like toll receipts, petrol receipts, and they should stamp it. But what happens is they're not. Like, people are going around 3-4 police stations in a day, and each one is refusing to stamp it. So I would recommend that you don't come over. If you're coming from the UK, you've got the choice of taking the ferry from, I think it's Portsmouth, to Santander or Bilbao, and then you get a stamp. If you're driving through France, you can go through Andorra. So when you leave Andorra, you'll get a stamp when you go into Spain. And I'm not 100% sure if it's 24 hours, the border, but I've seen plenty of Andorra stamps. So you could do that. You could take a quick trip to Gibraltar if you're down in the south, and that's a way of getting a stamp. And what some people even do is just fly to and from the UK in one day just to get their passport stamps, because it makes the application a whole lot less stressful, because, as I said, the passport is the first thing they look at, and if there's any issue with it, it's a nice, easy reason to reject you, not have to look at all the other documents.
That's a good idea, that flying there and back, because it's probably a day's worth of waiting around and collecting a form, going into the police station, getting that stamp, just standing in line and all that.
This actually brings me to another one of my tips, is for the few months before the application, to pay a lot of attention to the stamps in your passport. I have one client at the moment where the stamp had the wrong date on. The border guard just had the wrong date on the stamp. It's unbelievably lucky.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of thing you would think to check. You think, oh, a nice clear stamp, great. And she didn't check. So that's causing lots of problems. Another client has got a 9 that looks like a 0. So things like that you wouldn't think to check. But if you know you're going to be applying for this visa, it's a good idea just to pay attention.
Very good. Yes, always check your documents. Check your NIE number as well when you get that through, if you apply for one of those. That's another similar thing. Rochelle had a comment here that followed on. She's emailed the UGE to ask if you can renew more than once, so over the 5 years total, if you're not interested in permanent residency and want to be out of Spain for more than the 10 months in 5 years. And she says there's been no response to that email yet. So let us know when that's the case, Rochelle, and I'm sure you'll put it up on your Facebook group, Ask Rochelle and Lucia. I'll give you a plug there, and just copy me into that so I can publicise it on here as well. Thank you. And Stephen Perry says, yes, he's missed out the information earlier on. My assumption is that you have to apply in Spain for the DNV. Just clarify on that one.
No, you also have the option of applying from a consulate in the country where you're resident. I think we talked about earlier the differences. If you apply in a consulate, you get a 1-year visa usually, which is kind of not much point for most people, because you come to Spain, if you're interested in the permanent residency, it doesn't count the visa, so you then have to apply again. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. If you're not interested in permanent residency, you can wait till the end of the year, but then you have to apply in Spain again anyway. So I'd say it's only for possibly people with big families. It'd be a good idea, or there'd be an advantage of applying in a consulate, just because you don't want to take over your whole family and the pets, the furniture, and then there's a risk that the application isn't successful. But and the way to get around that could be applying in the consulate, or it could also be just taking a holiday at the beginning of your 90-day Schengen allowance, not bringing along the kids, the pets, the furniture, just coming alone, and then do your application. If there's any problem with it, because things can always go wrong, you'll find out within 20 to about day that takes us to 40 of your Schengen allowance. You then return to your home country, fix whatever was wrong, you can come back and apply again. So that's the best way for dealing with that. And that's actually one of my tips, is that's the ideal way to apply, to do it at the beginning of your Schengen allowance or visa, because then if something goes wrong, if something missing, you can do another application and you'll still be within your 90 days. Actually, what I just said then was wrong. If that person who came over at the start of their 90 days received a rejection, there'd be no problem with staying in Spain. We could just do a second application right away, if that makes sense. Whereas if someone's applying on day 88 of their 90 days, if they get a rejection, they have to return to their home country and start from scratch at the consulate.
Good to know. Rochelle said this is about getting the entry stamp, signing the entrada form. She said she's had clients sign the entrada form by a notary and they were approved. Well, that's good. So instead of going into the police station, it's good to know. Thanks, Rochelle.
Yeah, that's a good. They do like notaries. They do like things signed by notaries. So.
Great stuff. So one final call out for live chat questions while we're waiting for any more questions to come in. Let me just remind you that if you have any more questions or comments after we go off the air, put them in the YouTube comments below. Make sure it's on YouTube and not on some Facebook expat group, because then the only person who gets to see it will be me, and so the advice won't go out to everybody that watches this video. So yeah, put it in these YouTube comments below. It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top. I'll say that again because I love it. Don't forget to click on the like button, of course. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Don't hit the like button twice because it just makes it disappear. And if you subscribe and click on the notifications bell, you'll be the first to know what's coming up each week on the live shows and the midweek videos. So no more live chat questions come through. Any last words from you, Louise?
Yes, I forgot there was a couple of questions that came into my Facebook group, our Facebook group, that I forgot to answer, from Anna Elisa. So the first one, how long to get an NIE and clave? I think Anna was wanting to apply by herself. So obviously you need to get an NIE and a clave or digital certificate to do that. How long to get an NIE? It's very difficult in Spain to get one, because I've had clients who've had an appointment, they go, the police don't like their reason for asking for it. But if you're lucky enough to have a reason that they like, I don't know how long it would take. It depends which area you're in, how quick the appointments are. You can do it. The quickest way is to do it through a a representative with a power of attorney, then it can be done from within a week. But then that's obviously going to cost money, which people applying alone may not want to spend. Digital certificate is pretty quick to get. You have to go to an office to confirm your identity, but usually there's not a very long wait for appointments. Anna Elise was asking, do you need to have a long-term address, or is an Airbnb okay to apply? Well, this is actually some good news in the past few months. If you're in Madrid or Barcelona, you don't need to be on the Padrón for the second step of the digital nomad visa process, which is the TIE appointment. I should say first, you don't need to be on the Padrón. You don't need a long-term address to apply. This is for the next step, the second step, which is the TIE appointment. And if you're in Madrid and Barcelona, and there's some other cities opening up, they have special appointments that you don't need to be on the Padrón to apply for. So that's good news. Anna Elise's, Anna Elise's last question: can a Spanish friend do the application? Yes. The only thing a Spanish friend needs to do is a simple power of attorney, something that you sign, or that you both sign, giving permission to do the application for someone else. But yeah, you don't really need to use a professional. You can do your application through a friend if you want to.
Great. There's another question actually on the live chat. If you're approved in the consulate for your digital nomad visa, presumably, can the applicant go apply to UGE for the 3 years residency immediately once in Spain?
Yes, but then it's a whole separate application. So I'd ask myself what the advantage would be in doing that. I mean, for some countries where you need to apply for a visa to come to Spain, a Schengen visa, then yeah, there would be an advantage, because otherwise you couldn't just enter the country without a visa. But if you're able to apply for a 3 year, if you're able to come to Spain and within your 90-day Schengen allowance, I can't see much advantage of doing that. Maybe there are advantages. Just can't think of any.
No, interesting question. There we go. And that is the last one. So in a moment, I'll tell you who we have for you on next week's show. But for now, let's say a huge thank you with a virtual hug and a kiss to Louise for being so very helpful. Thanks so much for coming on the show and taking the time up, Louise.
You're welcome. I've really enjoyed it, actually. I love talking about the digital nomad visa.
Excellent. And you're welcome back anytime to talk about it. Maybe we'll get you and Rochelle on all together on the show, and you can you can collaborate. Okay then. So everybody wave bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye for now. So on next Saturday's show, who do we have to answer your questions? Well, it's Chris from Upsticks. Yet again, it's his regular fortnightly thing. And I think what we're going to be talking about, because next week is kind of it's the weekend before Halloween. So I think we're going to call it the horrors. What are the horrors of moving to Spain? So that's going to be interesting. And we might even dress up in costumes as well. So that's going to be very silly and a lot of fun. I'll announce it properly on our Facebook page and the Facebook group over the next few days. Then you can ask questions in advance on either of those pages, or you can of course subscribe to this YouTube channel and ask questions on here. So thank you to all of you for joining us on the live chat. I won't name check everybody, but yeah, big thanks to Rochelle for coming on and answering even more questions and clarifying things there. And to all of the rest of you for your wonderful questions, and to everybody who's watching the video back afterwards in the future, time travelers, and leaving comments. Yeah, leave as many comments as you can on YouTube. This is brilliant. And hit the like button, and make sure you go up to there it is, the QR code, and buymeacoffee.com. I'll see you on the next latest helpful video on Wednesday evening, or news item, or whatever it is. There might be a breaking news this week. And then again live next Saturday morning at our regular time of 10 o'clock Spanish time, or 9 o'clock if you're in the UK or Ireland or the Channel Islands. or 4 o'clock if you're in New York, 4 o'clock in the morning. Poor New Yorkers have to get up so early. If you're in California, it's even earlier. It's probably still last night. So that is all for this week. Somebody pass around the Digital Nomad Visa cookies, and peace and love to everybody. And here is one final message from everybody here at YouTooSpain.
Bye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.